Once again, I'm Pastor Jeremy Combs, and we're going to meet the Majesty in Matthew. Thank you for joining us, our weekly 15-minute Bible study. Let's get right to it as we start a brand new chapter, chapter 7. Of course, chapter 7 is the end of what we would call the Sermon on the Mount, and it's divided up in several ways. The first half of the chapter is divided up in 6 and 6 verses. In fact, John MacArthur points out on this that the first 6 verses focus on the negative aspect of self-righteousness. None of us struggle with that, right? Where we have a judgmental spirit and maybe even a condescending spirit towards others. And then the next 6 verses, verses 7 through 12, focus on the contrasting spirit that is humble, that is trusting, and that is loving. And MacArthur says these 12 verses help to form the divine summation of all principles of right human relationships. Do you need to work on your human relationships? Well, this is a great place to be. The Bible is a very practical and applicable book. So let's hop right into it. Charles Swindoll says that if worry is the pet sin of a Christian, then judging is probably our favorite pastime. And one of the most misquoted verses in, I think, all the Bible, and maybe one of the most quoted verses in all the Bible, is verse number 1. It is short. It says this: "Judge not, that you be not judged." Now, when do people use this verse? Well, typically they pull this verse out when you're correcting them or you're pointing out maybe that there is something that they're doing that is not right. And then they say, hey, the Bible says, judge not, that you be not judged. And what they're trying to say is that we have no room, and it is not our responsibility to judge other people. Now, there's a little bit of truth to that, and usually this is how misquoting or verses out of context are taken. Am I your judge today? Well, of course not. You will not stand before me because I am like you. I am a sinner. I am flawed. We will all stand before God one day. But that does not mean that I am not responsible to, and at times even it is required of me to come to you and say, I think this is wrong. You're doing wrong. But as I do it, the focal point on this verse is not to judge, but the focal point is be careful how you judge other people. You need to judge them on the same standard as you would judge yourself. Because as you read through the context of this, Jesus is going to go on and he's going to talk about taking the mote out of your own eye before you take the splinter out of your brother's eye, and don't cast your pearl before swine, and other things. And so God is definitively not saying you cannot discern or judge or recognize somebody's doing wrong. What he is saying, though, is that you need to make sure you're doing it fairly and equally. Does God judge us? Oh boy, you bet he does, and he will one day. You say, yeah, but God's a God of love. He is a God of love, but he's also a God of judgment and righteousness. He will do what is right. A judge that does what is right has to lay down the law. He has to take care of those who do what is wrong. And so this verse, if someone throws it in your face and says, judge not that you be not judged, who are you to say this or say that? You can find that you can take a verse and you can use it as, what we say, a shield or an excuse, which is really what this one is used. But it's more of a, not you can't judge, but it's more of an inward part where you're saying, I need to be careful how I judge other people. Let's kind of hash this out here as you get to verse 2. For with what judgment ye judge, here we go, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. So there's a law in the Bible as well. It's called you reap what you sow. And this comes to fruition here in this passage as well, where, how you carry out judgment with other people, that's one day how you will be judged. Okay, so if you're going to be harsh and you're going to be severe with people, then there's going to come a time where you're going to need mercy and understanding, and people are going to be harsh and they're going to be severe with you. If you measure out judgment and punishment and it is extreme or severe, then what's going to happen is it's going to come back to you. And when you are judged, the penalty or the judgment is going to be way out of bounds as well. And so when we go to work with other people, there's great discernment that is needed. There's obviously time, and there is obviously the spirit that we need. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do is go to somebody and say, hey, you're doing wrong and you're going to hurt yourself. Church discipline is in the Bible, and there's a lot of churches that refuse to practice church discipline. It's not that we look forward to it, it's not that we want to do it, but in love, you carry out church discipline. Why? So that you could push people out of the way, so that you can ridicule them and make them look bad? No, because with that judgment and discipline, you're hoping that will help them to return back to the faith and to where they need to be in their life. Verse 3, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye? Okay, mote would be the idea really of splinter, like a little piece of wood. We might even say like a toothpick. I mean, it's sizable. It's something that if I had a toothpick sticking out of my eye, I'm hoping somebody would want to help me with that. But it says this, but why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considereth not the beam that is in thine own eye? Okay, so I'm coming over to you and saying, oh my, you got a toothpick sticking out of your eye. And the humor of this is, I'm trying to talk to you and you're trying to dodge because I've got a big 2x4 that is coming out of my eye. How wilt thou say to thy brother, verse 4, let me pull out the mote, let me come out and pull that thing out of your eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote that is in thy brother's eye. So what Jesus says here is not don't pull somebody's beam or log out of their eye. One preacher said, this is a verse, it was Adrian Rogers. Jesus says, be careful of logs, dogs, and hogs. I think we'll get to the final two, but here's the logs portion for you. He says, before you go out and you want to pull out a beam or a splinter out of someone's eye, get the log out of your own eye. It's interesting. Sometimes people that are guilty of sin are the harshest on other people who are doing the same thing. You say, why do folks do that? Well, I think it is a way in which they seemingly justify themselves, and or maybe the idea is that they throw that onto somebody else so that then they will not be condemned. Bible says don't be a hypocrite. Obviously, when we work with people, nobody's without sin, but the idea is if you've got that splinter or beam in your eye, pull that beam out first, take care of your own problems, and then in love and with the right spirit of, hey man, that was really hurting my eye, it was affecting my vision, let me help you. You've got something, man, not as much as me, but I just want to, here's some things that help me. And I really, and that's the kind of attitude and spirit we need to have. Sometimes as Christians, oh boy, we can be so bad in this area where we get a self-righteous spirit, where we think we are so good and everybody else is just trying to measure up to us. Jesus said, do not do that. And then we get to verse 6. He says, give not that which is holy unto the dogs. So we've got logs, and now we've got dogs. Don't give what is holy to dogs. Now, in the Bible, when we think of dogs, it's not thinking of, oh, you're a cute little dog. We've got a little cute little lap dog at home. I guess you could say cute, Chewy. Okay, and I don't know why Chewy always wants to sit with me, but anyway, um, he's the pet and all that, and we like him. He's a little bit, got to take him out, all that stuff. Little bit of time consuming, but other than that, we really like him. That's not the kind of thing we're talking about. We're not talking about a pet. We're talking about a mongrel, wild dog that if your kid's outside, he's going to try to chase him down and bite him. He's going to get into your garbage and then eat eat on it, and he's going to be barking through the night, and just, I mean, an utter dirty, defiling nuisance is the idea here. And so Jesus says, okay, well, we can't judge. Well, he says, what, number one, before you go and you help someone with a mote in their eye, pull the beam out of your eye. And then number two, if you're going to give things out that are holy, don't give them out to dogs. Don't give out holy things to people that could, in essence, care less and would trample them down into the ground. Not everybody is ready for or should be given spiritual things. This is a big mistake sometimes we make in churches, that we have people that start coming and we think, oh, this is great. And what they need to do is they need to be in some positions. They need to teach a Sunday school class, or they need to do this or do that, and it'll kind of get them on the ball, and then they'll start growing and they'll start living for God. Well, I think first what you need to see is you need to see somebody that is genuine and sincere and has a heart for God, and then that's when things that are holy will be more meaningful to them. If not, you give them something that is holy, something that is of God. They don't understand it, and in essence, they'll just chew it up, spit it out like a wild dog. And so, we need to be careful in these situations on what we do and how we handle them. Again, discernment is a big factor here. Then he goes on and says, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. So here's the we've had the logs, we've had the dogs, and then here are the hogs, the little pig in the pig pen. You think, boy, I want this pig to look better. So what do? You take it and you put some pearl necklace around him, and make him look great. What's going to happen? Well, that hog's going to return to the muck and to the mire, and he's going to take the pearl necklace with him, and then you're going to find that it'll be trampled down and in the mud. And Jesus says, you need to be discerning. Don't do that. Okay. When Jesus sent his disciples out later, two by two, he said that if they reject you, they've not rejected you, they've rejected me. Wipe the dust off your feet and, in essence, move on. If we're not careful, we let the world dictate what it is that we're going to do. We've got the pearls, precious pearls of the gospel, the precious pearls of the Lord, and we go and we try to force it onto somebody, and then what do? They trample it down into the mud, and we end up getting discouraged, and it comes back, and they rend you or they hurt you. And Jesus says, when you're dealing with spiritual things, you've got to be careful of doing these things with unspiritual people. And so, right off the bat, when someone quotes the verse 7 chapter 7, verse 1, it says, judge not that you be not judged. Jesus is in no way saying that you shouldn't size somebody up. You need to do that. You need to, when somebody asks you to do something, or they say, hey, can we hang out, or what have you. You need to be discerning and say, is this the kind of person that I'd want to have in my home? Is this the kind of friends I'd want my kids to have? And you've got to be willing to do it open and honest, but you still, you need to do it. And you've got to be discerning. Sometimes as pastor, get a lot of requests for things. And well, you just want to help everybody, but discernment, and really even you're just not able to do so, causes you to have to surmise and try to figure out what is a good, who is someone that we should help in the Lord, who's somebody that is abusing the system. There's people that abuse the system, and if we're not careful, we give them money, thinking that we're giving them money to give them food or electricity or something, and then they go out and they use it, and they use it for drugs, or they go out and they just splurge it and throw it away. Again, it's a hog, and you're giving the Lord's treasures and investments. You want to be discerning and wise. Now, I tell you, if you're not careful, you'll never give it to anybody. If you have a spirit of everybody is using us, well, that would be the same as verse 1's condemnation of, you got to be careful not to cast a wide net over this thing and say everybody. Not everybody. There are honest people that fall into hard times and they need help, and that is where we need the Lord. And in fact, that's where we're going to go next week, because right after he does all this, you say, that is tough. Well, verse 7, God says, ask and it shall be given you. We're going to get into that verse next week. Hey, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.